I think it is. Yes. You did. Didn't you mention the whole flavor text competition? I think you did.
No.
I'm gonna mention it at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me mention it. That's my...
No.
Are we
If
back?
Overlord
Are we
can
in the
talk
land of
about
the living?
ESL, I can talk about the Scrolls Guide stuff.
No, yeah, you should bring
What?
this up to me beforehand, before we actually start this thing.
Dude, I could.
Okay, settle down. People are aware of us being back again. So guys, we had a little bit of a connection issue there. Internet went down for just a minute or so, but we are now back on the air, and Billy can continue talking.
Okay, I don't know how much got through, so I'll just start again. I think this is a really interesting scroll, right? Like, it's something that is completely different to anything we've seen before. It is both a positive for you and a negative for your opponent, but it affects lingering spells. We haven't really seen too much like this so far. Out of all the scrolls, the new ones at least, this is my favorite as far as how interesting it is. Like the Overlord said, it probably isn't going to be running mono order right now, but I mean, we haven't seen all the scrolls. I would bet there's going to be a new order lingering spell to come out of this new set, right? So who knows? That could be the one that makes this really, really powerful. And I think that, you know, its abilities, you know, the +3 and -2 for 2 is, I mean, that's huge, right? That's a really, really, really big buff. And it will keep you in the game for so much longer. You know, also shut down your opponent if they happen to be running a lingering spell.
Yeah.
I think this is great. I think it's a really good scroll.
Yeah, to put it really short, because we need to move on. And my final note on it is that, as you say, the flexibility of it is what makes it a lot viable. When something is flexible, you often are able to put it into the deck and play with it.
Yeah.
Okay, then we move on to the next scroll, which is the Proud Mercenary. And this little fella is a creature. He's a 3-order human mercenary. Mercenary is a new subtype. It isn't in any other creature in the game currently. And I did a check, and they haven't retroactively added to another creature in the game. He's a 2/2/3 with a very simple ability. Adjacent creatures have +1 attack. So the Overlord, you're the order guy. You get to talk about this first.
Okay. I had some echo. Anyway, I am in. He's just to start talking here. He's a really good guy. I'm just not sure where, but I'm hearing myself from someone that it's really
It's
annoying.
Squiddy, yeah, it's Squiddy Echo.
I think it's Squiddy.
It's the set, guys. We're doing it for the set. It's theming the Echo.
Yeah, it's all a part
It's
of the
still
set.
bad.
Don't worry about it. Just keep
Echo
going.
Maton.
It's just that when it comes to Proud Mercenary, I'm not sure if I feel he's overpowered or not. I don't think he's overpowered, but the guy is really good, man. The fact that he is sort of just one more cost ducal infantryman in a sense. Well, he has the same health, so not really. But he's affecting adjacent. And adjacent is a lot more reachable than the same lane. The same row is Duke of Infantryman just affecting 2 guys. This guy is affecting, I cannot count, but I think it's 6 ?
Yeah,
6
up to
guys
6.
around him, and he can reach all the way. One of the most effective tactics I have found with this guy is that you have a dual infantryman in behind, and then this guy in the middle, and then you have some kind of blocker in the front, and you have a massive damage output coming from this whole row. And not only that, he's also affecting those around him. Anyway, so he's really staple. We're probably gonna see a lot of him. I'm just not sure if he's too good. I don't think he's too good, but he's damn good.
I mean, what you can do with him, if you have him on the middle of your board, you can buff up any creature on your side by moving him up or down, because he'll be adjacent to them. and buff them up. So it's very versatile. It's going to be real easy to pull off his attack buff. So Xylus, you have any thoughts on this?
I had, but you know, there's the Overlord talking before me, so basically all I can say has already been said. I love to run this guy. I think he's flat out better than Ducal Infantryman. And I even run that already, so well, I like him. I don't like him as much as Storm, to be honest, or neither as much as Coronation. I think I don't prefer the two other Order scrolls over him, but he's still good, which is a good sign.
And Billy loves to talk about his sword style.
Okay.
Why don't you...
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Billy. Just shortly, not too much.
So, I'll talk about the scroll first before I talk about anything else. This is gonna bring me back to Tempo Order. Like, I'm probably not gonna play Decay once this hits live. I'm gonna go back to Order, and I'm gonna play Tempo Order again. That's how big I think this card is. I think that this guy is just absolutely incredible. I think he's a better Ducal Infantryman, and when you think about how good Ducal Infantryman and how long that has been a mainstay in Order decks, and this guy's just better. Like I just think he's better. The only question is, what are you going to get rid of, right? Like, how are you going to make space for this guy? What's going to leave the deck? Because in an ideal world. In an ideal world, you would have him and Ducal, but is there really space in a deck to have him? I mean, I would love to hear what your opinion is on this, Overlord. Like,
I would say definitely run both. You can definitely make space. Like many Tempo Order runs, for example. This is just an example. You can take out whatever you want.
Mhm.
But as an example, many Tempo Order runs Aging Knight. He's way more worth than an Aging Knight. You can take out the Aging
what I
Knight
was
for
thinking.
it. Like, there's ways to put him in, and he's worth having in.
So do you guys think that the lack of the soldier subtype might make people hesitant to put him in?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, totally, because you know there is that one synergy with the captain, and him not moving 2 tiles. It's gonna ruin everything.
I think that's such a minuscule point. Honestly, I think this guy's so good, and with smart play, I think he's going to be. Like, I think you're looking at the new Tempo Order, right? Like, it's going to be based around this guy. I think it might not even be Tempo Order anymore. It might be just straight up aggro, right? That it's so aggressive, and you just run into people, you know. I think this guy's great. If he's overpowered or not, can't say. I want to say no. I want to say he's as close to the line as he can be. If he was any better, then he would be overpowered. But the same thing, like, he could be a lot worse, I think, and still be good. You know, like
You have to put into a perspective here, like how powerful this guy is. Everyone knows how powerful, as at least if you play it at some point, like it's not overpowered, but it's powerful. Ancestral Totem is. This guy costs 1 less than Ancestral Totem. He do not affect the whole field, but he affect a lot of guys. And he is a creature himself that can attack, and so on. That's so he's really damn powerful. Just to put that into perspective.
He's basically like Order's version of Wetland Ranger, kind of.
Yeah, sort of.
That's
But
a
you
good
get
comparison.
him instantly. You're gonna notice, like when you start to play with this guy, you're gonna notice how fast, and when you also have Ducal Infantryman, how much damage, how fast you get out on the field. It's ridiculous. There's also the same deck I run, Grounds of the Fallen, because I'm like, screw it, just more damage. Let's go to 6 attack.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying though. Like I think that you could see Tempo Order disappear and become much more aggro, right? Where you're pumping these guys up for so much damage, and you're just going to run into people and hit them so hard with so many different units, you know. And Order has a great transition towards mid game too, you know, with units like General and stuff, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of attack buffs, we'll move on to the final of the Order Scrolls, and this is one of the most controversial scrolls prior to it being shown on the test server. It's Coronation, an 8 Order enchantment that does the following. enchanted creature you control has its base countdown set to 1, and it gets +6 attack and +6 health. But it also has a downside. When enchanted creature is destroyed, all idols you control are destroyed.
Okay, shall I start again?
Yeah, you go ahead, because
Yeah,
this
okay.
is interesting.
Worth to mention, because you didn't mention it, this was the winner of the design competition.
Yes,
which
it is that as well.
Which is why everyone loved it so much, sarcasm. And although, to be fair, the original way it was in design competition, it was even more ridiculous, because I don't know if you remember King's Peace original, but you lose every idol, and this become the sole win condition. They removed that lose all idol part, and you just lose with
Yeah,
it.
you couldn't use purification on it when it was King's Peace. You can now.
Yeah, but my point was that this became your one idol, and you lost all the other 5 in the original ID. Anyway, and by the way, we never touched on Billy's sword with Proud Mercenary. We're not gonna touch it, but because we mentioned it, he's been looking what kind of art style, what kind of fighting style, and he's not finding it, and we're mocking him. Anyway, about Coronation.
Maybe at the end we'll talk about it, but yeah.
Yeah, about Coronation here. There was a lot of feelings.
Not all of them good.
Okay. I'm gonna take short, because we need to try to be short to move on, but there's a lot of thoughts from a lot of people when it comes to this. What is positive? Let's start then. No, okay. Okay, let's start with the negative. What's negative? Negative is that I don't think it's really thought through the design with this card. There's a major flaw in design with this, because the drawback is you lose the game. You lose the game if you lose this enchantment. This means you're only gonna play this really if you're gonna win with it. And if you're gonna win with it, then the opponent may just as well surrender. So you're either never gonna see it, or when you're gonna see it, the opponent don't really stand a chance beating it, and that is a bad design. But is it redeemable? Like, can you make this work in the game? I think there's ways. There's specifically one I have in mind, but that is for balance talk in the future, I guess. How it is now, it's it's good. Many think it's people are like 50-50. I own the 50 that say that this is potentially very broken, and because people are like, yeah, it's good if you can get a ward out, and honestly, you can get a ward really easy. I can easily get Untainted if I really want to.
You did it in ESO. You did it in ESO.
Yeah, and I even come to the conclusion, because in the ESL I had the Woodland Memorial, and I come to the conclusion that I don't really need Woodland Memorial. I can just spend one turn to get one growth, and then I can for the next turn do the Untainted. That's like worth it for a Coronation. So it's easily how balanced is it right now? It's what I will say that's positive. It's positive because you give more of a God hand. The good thing with God hand for growth is that it makes sure that growth late game is late game for too long. It don't become this structure energy has the opposite problem. Structure energy tends to drag on a bit too long, while late game growth don't really drag on too long, because they just do God hand and win. So that is a good way to make sure the game don't drag on for too long. And this feels kind of that role, but there's not really too many good ways to play against it. And I feel I'm gonna stop here for now. I've tested it, and I think it has problems and it has good parts. And it's difficult to test because it costs so much. You can't. I've seen many try to test.
Yeah.
I've seen many people try to test it, but they rush for it too much. Like this is like a K. Like K, you're not gonna play K every match, okay? K is not played every match.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had to
Just
chime
move
in
on. Just move
somehow.
on. Just move on. Let it sink in. Just move on.
But I'm just saying, a K, at least for me, when I have a K in the deck, I play her like every fourth match. I don't play her every single match. And it's the same with Coronation. I'm probably gonna play it like every third or every fourth match, and that is probably what's gonna make me win the game. But I'm not really gonna play it every match. That's why it's hard to test it.
Okay.
If you're gonna rush to it, you're probably gonna lose. And now I talk way too much.
Yeah, now we're
So-
going to pass it over to Billy. Billy, do you have any thoughts on this scroll? Have you played around with it personally?
Not really. I don't really have a concise point because I think that this is a sort of scroll you need to see at a much larger scale, right? This is something that takes a few weeks to really go, is this amazing or is this kind of bad, right? Like it's too big to be like it's amazing or it's really bad at just looking at it or playing a few games on a test server. But what I do want to say is that I feel like this as a concept is great for the game. I really, really do. And a lot of people hate God decks and just despise God decks and anything to do with that. But something that is consistent in TCGs that I play is that there are these God decks, right? There are these super monster decks, right? It's Magic the Gathering has it. Magic the Gathering has quite a few of them, in fact. Pokemon TCG has it as well. Yu-Gi-Oh had it. Like all these TCGs, they all have these big beefy, creature decks that either the creature's really strong or there's a combo you can do to make a creature really, really strong. So I think it's important we get this into Scrolls in some form. Is this the right way of doing it? I think it's too early to tell. I think, like I said, this needs a lot of testing. But I definitely think that we do need stuff like this. And I think people have to realize that, this will be part of the game, and we just have to make sure that it's as fun to play with and to play against as possible. And the only way we can do that is test it and let the devs know how to improve it.
All right. Xylus, you have any thoughts on it?
Yes, what Billy said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
personally,
may I give a short response to Billy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You're definitely right, Billy. The issue is just that the Scrolls don't have the answers the other games have to these god decks. That is what becomes an issue. So until we find a proper system to give answers for it, the cards kind of need a way, like a natural way to be dealt with. Like if we're gonna do a short balance suggestion, my balance suggestion honestly for Coronation is that I think it should have a timer. Like I think it should only last like 4 turns or something, and like that. So there's a sort of natural way to handle it. But so that is my short comment to Billy.
all right, what I was going to say is what I've realized with Coronation is that its downside is so extreme that you have no reason whatsoever not to play multiple Coronations on this one unit. Because the downside isn't multiplied. If you have 2 Coronations on the same unit and it dies, it's the same result as if you have 1 Coronation on the unit. And when you look at it from that aspect, it is slightly like a bad design because you have here a scroll which becomes more powerful the more you play it in a rather weird way. And you're not increasing its vulnerability. So if
What if so this is slightly off topic, right? For anyone that didn't see it, me and Squeeze sat down and we looked at some old cards that I came up with. It was a few weeks back, last Brag and Brawl. You remember in that one, I remember I had that card that did, if you didn't play a creature, it did 1 damage to your idols every single turn. What if you got rid of the if you don't play 1 creature, right? Because that has nothing to do with this. But what if it did 1 damage to your idols every single turn? What if Coronation did, like, it put you on the clock, right? Like the Overlord said, if there was like a timer, but what if the timer was, if you don't win, in let's say 10 turns with this card in play, then you won't win at all. Like you'll lose.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting way of attaching a downside to the scroll, because I would scale up. If you played 3 Coronations, that would be deal 3 damage to your idols every turn. And then you only have 3 turns on you to actually win the game. Sure, you'd have to adjust its power a little bit, make it even more powerful. but at least you'd put it on a timer that would make sure that the game ends. The worry I have about giving it a potion resistance-like duration is that you play a coronation, 3 turns go by, and then you're back in this late game round 30 scenario, and you haven't actually lost. You haven't suffered something from playing the coronation. So you need to ensure that playing the coronation is risky. You're about to lose if you don't pull off the win. And with that, we're going to move on now to the energy scrolls.
I forgot the most important part.
Oh yeah, what were you going to say?
Is this lady in Coronation the same
the
lady
queen.
as
It's the
Royal
Empress.
Inspiration?
Yeah,
it is the queen.
Empress.
Yeah.
It is. Well, wait, hang on. This is important. It's referred to as an empire, right? Or is it referred to because they use both?
Yeah,
Okay, this is the
in-
sword.
in
This is the
chat, he
sword all
said-
over again. This is the
he
sword
said-
all over. Let's
he
move on
said
before I
in
get
chat-
like.
Yeah, okay, that part we
Queen
don't
slash
know.
Empress.
No,
Okay,
they're
I can
not
just
what they're saying.
confirm.
They're very specific. Like
I can
mark what they
confirm
have,
that the woman
yes.
is the queen. So maybe there's a kingdom and an empire. There's a kingdom in the empire.
That's
No, it's
probably
the same
You're
person.
on to something there, Squiddy. All right, let's move on before.
And
This...
the artwork is amazing.
Yeah, the artwork's good.
Okay, but we're going to move on to energy. And the first one there is a creature. It's Canister Automaton. 2 energy, automaton creature, 2/3 stat line. So the standard 2-cost stat line, but with an ability. When Canister Automaton is destroyed in melee combat, its attacker is dealt 3 physical damage. So this time, why don't Billy go ahead and tell us what you think about this scroll?
Meh. I mean, I don't really have too much to say on this. Like, people are saying it's a walking proxy mine. Kind of think that's kind of unfair, sort of.
It's better than a walking proxy.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Like, it's way better. I don't really have too much to say. Like, it just seems like an interesting card. It's an automaton. It's a good subtype. It will probably see some play. I don't play enough energy to say if this will make a huge impact or not. But I think it's better than a proxy mine, and I think proxy mines are okay. So I think it will see a little bit of play, if nothing else.
Yes.
Yep. Xylus?
Yes. And basically, I agree. It is amazing if you want to just expand on the automaton subtype. So I like having the opportunity to build tribal decks, basically, just because it's more fun and adds a little bit of variety. And the card is both interesting and on a very agreeable power level, which I like, and it looks great. It also has the best flavor text in the game.
I love the flavor text. I love the animation, the way it moves around just when it's idle. The Overlord?
Yeah, you're gonna be happy now because I'm probably gonna be way shorter now we left order. When it comes to Canister Automaton, my first thought is that it's actually really good because it's like a gun automaton. It has the same stat as a gun automaton. It's just that gun automaton is range, and sure, that's good. But this has 3 physical damage back, and I will say that's better than range. Although that said, when I thought more about it, I'm like, but the thing is, what role will this guy serve? I guess he will just serve as a jump blocker, because you don't often, even in automaton deck, you don't really play gun automaton just for playing him. That is just like for opening. You often get him from the forge or something. Because, like, if we're gonna have another melee unit, which is the Ecomaton, you can do serious damage, but he's mostly there to serve as a way to be spell hater and ramp for you. That's like his role. What is this guy's role? I guess it's just to be a jump blocker. Is it worth to have a jump blocker? I think so. Like, I can see people switch their gun automatons to canister instead, but I'm not sure. This is too advanced automaton tactics for me to really go into depth if he's worth it or not.
Is it too technical?
Basically, I think that a lot of people have this mindset that energy requires bombard. And that's the reason they look at something like the gun automaton. They look at this thing and they say, okay, I can't use bombard on this thing. But as you're going to see in a moment here, there are some new scrolls coming out that might make bombard not relevant in a lot of energy decks.
Impossible.
It's possible. Because we'll move on, because there's not much for me to say about this, and it links into Dance Battle, or Battle Dance. It's a 3-energy spell that counts down target creature and connected creatures by 1. So it works like a Thunder Surge. You have
Thunder
like...
Haste.
A what?
Thunder Haste.
Yeah, it's like a Thunder Haste. You can have like bunch of creatures on the edges of your board, and they're all connected. You can count down 15 creatures. You know, it's crazy value. It's crazy easy to pull off as well. I've noticed it when I played around with it. So because of scrolls like this, you might not need to run Bombard. You could run a more aggro automaton deck, which just puts in a lot of creatures, just as Growth does in their aggro decks. You put in something like a Nog or a Kinfolk Ranger in their deck, that's a 2/2/3 for 2. It doesn't do anything particular. In comparison, the Canister Automaton is much better than those creatures. So if you can build a similar styled aggro deck that counts down your stuff without counting down your opponent's side, thanks to the Battle Dance, then you suddenly have a reason to go without Bombard. But you guys, what do you think about Battle Dance?
I can go first.
Yeah, go first. Like, I gotta think about this.
Yeah. This is one of the cards that I need to test more. I haven't really come around to test with energy yet. Because it can be good. I say she because it's Canonet on the picture. It can be good, it can be bad. Like, the argument for it being bad, in a sense, is that, well, sure, Fury affects opponent's board, but it is the same thing with same cost and affects your whole board, and Fury is not that awesome. This demands, however, that all your units are connected, which is not too difficult, but it's still a condition, just as Fury has the condition it's affecting opponent's board. Does that make this great, or just like on the same par as Fury, and Fury is not that awesome? Or one could see it as it's a free cost rally, in the sense that, like, sure, rally counts down by 2, but most of the time your unit is going to be at 1 countdown, which makes this just what you need. So, like, how good is it? I think it's worth running. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I think it's worth running. I'm not sure, however, how much on the power level it is.
All right, Billy.
I think it's quite good. My question, so here's a question to you guys that perhaps have played this a little bit more than me. Can you play it on opponents' units? I just want to know, because in some very, very specific situations... Yeah, okay, so in some very, very specific situations, you might want to play this on your opponent's units. I mean, that's just something to... but as for the scroll itself in its intended use, I think it's good. I think it's a better Fury, and I really do think it's a better Fury. I think the condition is slightly harder to get off, right? Like, it's not as easy as Fury, which is a bit more forgiving as far as your side, but Fury also benefits your opponent's side 100% of the time, right? If nothing else, even if you're just using this on, like, you know, one creature, you're still, I mean, it's still going to be useful, right? If you get a kill out of it, it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade, right? You input a card, and then, you know, you get a kill out of it that makes it a 1-for-1 trade. So I actually think it's quite good because of that. I think it will find space in decks. I really do. I think that if anyone's running Fury, they should probably just switch it out for this immediately. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Something to note here. You can, when it says connected, by the way, any structure that's in between 2 creatures, make those 2 creatures connected. So it doesn't just have to be creatures that are connected for it to affect all the creatures in the chain of units.
Well,
go ahead, Silas.
Well, that makes it even better.
Well, is that confirmed to be a non-bug?
Who knows?
Yeah, that might be a bug. If that's the case, though, that makes it hey, that makes it crazy. And then
It would not surprise me if it is a bug, but they can't be arsed to fix it, so we're gonna say it's canon.
No, that's too big not to fix. That's too big of a bug not to
Because
fix.
connected.
Well, the difference is if it's not intended at first, and then there's a bug, and they say, "Wait a second, that's actually cool."
If they add it, then that's I think that'd be an interesting, like mechanic where it's just it can be connected, but sometimes the stuff won't be affected. But if it doesn't say that, then they need to fix it. Like that's too big of a thing not to fix.
Well, I think the problem is the word connected.
Connected.
Yeah, I mean connected means that units. Connected refers to units, but this is saying the units in these connected chain that happen to be creatures have their count now reduced by 1. So I don't really see any problem with it working through structures, that you can have structures.
They should probably just make connected like a blue word, like
highlight words. Yeah, okay, that's a quick fix then. Like I thought you meant like it didn't work. Like I don't think Thunder Surge had the same mechanics with connected, but if connected is like a trait, not a trait, but if it's like a key word that is used and it has the same effect on everywhere that it's pasted, right? Then it should just be a highlight word, right? Surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, connected is only on Thunder Surge, so they probably haven't gotten around to fix that.
Sure. I mean, that seems like if this is coming out and it's perfect time to do it, they're working on the cards anyway, right? If they're working on the new set, then they might as well just do it. I think it's just, half an hour's work at most.
By the way, have you guys, has anyone of you mentioned that it doesn't affect structures as opposed to Fury, which does?
I think that's still kind of I still think this is better though.
I'm just making a point. If you're running structures energy, then you won't be playing this over Fury.
Probably not. No.
Off-mez, yeah.
Well, if you're playing state machines, you're gonna like this above Fury.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you separate your state machines from your other units, which you can.
Next level. What I will say is that I am happy to see it, because I were one of the guys that said that Bombard should be nerfed, but it should be nerfed, but we should also give better options for energy. I was suggesting to buff Fury and Iron Whip, but I'm happy to see this one instead.
Okay, then we'll move on to the final energy scroll, which is another contest winner. It's a Lightning Chest. At 3 energy, it's a Linger 4 that does the following. Unused energy, I think they mean unused current energy, is added to your current energy at the start of your next turn. With the lore text, danger, do not touch. So I've said my thoughts on these in a couple of previous streams, so why don't you guys go ahead and give me your opinions.
I
say we let Silas start. I don't think Silas has ever started.
Oh, well, I'm honored.
You better be.
Well, it is a card. I like it because it has more to do with the energy theme of resource management. We've seen a lot of scrolls that, in some ways or another, interact with resource management, both in terms of ramping and in terms of decision making. If you want to leave energy open. For example, Replicaton does, and I think it's some kind of Reaver. Tempest Reaver. It's Tempest Reaver whose attack is equal to your current energy. So this is a very interesting addition to that mechanic, and it basically allows you to play these scrolls without ever having to worry about leaving energy open, because it doesn't matter, you get it back next turn, and it stacks, obviously. So if you have this out for 2 turns in a row and you don't use your energy for 2 turns, then both unused energies will come over onto your 3rd turn, which is amazing. The problem I see with this is if you run it in decks that use energy sinks, like Automata Forge or Solemn Giant, because then it counteracts their ideas, their design. But
yeah, I mean, they're both doing the same thing. You're using extra energy in different ways. In the case of Lightning Chest, you're using it next turn. In the case of Automata Forge, Solemn Giant, you're kind of inefficiently spending it to achieve something.
Oh yeah. Well, I really like it. Like the decision making. You have to have wild deck building when implementing this. On the other hand, what Dranraps just said and said, comparing this to Skull Shrine, like this is a very interesting comparison. Maybe you guys can evaluate on that. I haven't really given this much thought.
Well, the idea here, I think, that is going for that Skull Shrine, I think it gives you +2 current energy at your every turn, something like that. So that is
Yeah.
essentially a net gain of current energy that you get every turn guaranteed. But you can never get more than that +2. And if you can't use up that +2 energy, it's kind of all for nothing. Whereas with the lightning chest, you can kind of adjust how much extra energy you get every turn. So sometimes you might play lightning chest, but not actually use its effect for maybe 1 or 2 turns. But then you see, okay, I got this couple of expensive scrolls coming up. I'll not spend anything this turn, and I'll do it next turn.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think is really good. Like this, the ceiling on this is infinite, right? Like you can do some crazy stuff with this where you don't do anything for like 2 turns and you end up with this huge stockpile of energy, and then you could do all this crazy stuff in a single turn, you know, and put yourself ahead by like super far. The problem I see with this though is that, you know, it's unused energy, right? And energy has a lot of way, as a faction, has a lot of way to make sure you always use it all up or get really close. So I only see you having like 1 or 2 energy left over per turn on an ideal turn, right? When and that's going to give you a bonus, and I'm sure that's going to be nice for the following turn. But at that point, I don't know if it's really worth it.
What I will
Doubler?
say about it is that I think it fits energy really nice. It's too complex of a scroll for me to say if it is good or bad, because well, it changed how you play the game a lot. So you need to play the game a lot to really see if that change was good enough. Like, do you want to save your energy each turn? What can you do with it? There's a lot of things you can do with it. Is any of those things worth it, and so on? So
I think the issue, I think what you're getting at, and I think it's the same place I'm at. There's just too many variables, right? There's too much that could happen. Like, this could be the best scroll in the game. It could be absolutely amazing and win you the game in a single round. You know, if you have 7 energy and you manage to, you know, roll over and you have like, you know, 15, 16 the following turn, you do this crazy combo with, you know, speeding up Solemn Giants and all this other stuff, right? Or it could give you like 1 extra energy that doesn't really make that big of an impact. You know, I think there's just too many variables to say if this is going to be amazing or really bad. How consistent it is, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't play enough energy to be like, oh yeah, this is going to consistently give you 2 energy or 3 energy or however many it's going to give you, you know.
it's definitely not something we're gonna see in every deck. But what I will say is that I am a bit salty about this card because
Oh yeah.
at Waypoint, when we was introduced into lingering, I criticized the lingering we got at that point. Like, they said lingerings were big game-changing scrolls, and they didn't really feel like that game-changing. And when I said like, well, this was kind of my idea of lingering, and I gave examples, and this was one of my examples. And I'm like, I should have given that to the design contest then, because it's getting so much praise. I want that praise. I had this idea like long ago. God damn it! Anyway,
The next
that was
one.
all.
Yeah, move on to the growth scrolls, and overall I think this is going to be a really interesting scroll to play around with. I might even think you could make it cheaper. Okay, and the growth scrolls are, first of them is Earthen Splendor. It's a 2-cost spell that says enchant units you control, get +1 attack and +1 health. So guys, what do you think about this?
Worth to mention, it's permanently.
Yes, a lot of people got this confused, but it's a permanent attack buff. compared to something like the Ilmire Rot Eater, I don't think you can remove it with the purification either. But I'm not
That's
sure
weird.
about that one.
Is there much else like that that's a spell that is a permanent spell?
No, in the context that you cannot remove it with purification, there's nothing like it when it comes to manually buffing. Like there is things like Rot Eater and Berserker and so on, but there's nothing you can manually do. Like
Did it have its own trait then, or something? I feel like it should have its own trait then, you know, or something, right? Because it's weird to me, and because I don't know about you guys. I don't know if it's because I'm an idiot, but it didn't click with me immediately that this was a permanent thing, right? Like it wasn't just like, oh, of course, it's permanent, right?
No,
that just didn't immediately.
I
think. Well,
I feel it should perhaps. It's one of these Mojang logic that they have this thing that they do things in two parts. Like if they have where they mention it, like here we feel like it should perhaps say permanently, but they do like. For example, when it comes to current and not current, they say current when it is current. When it's permanently, they say nothing. That's sort of the rule they go, and it's a lot of that in the whole game where they say nothing and they say the opposite. This is one of the case where they say nothing and they only say the opposite when it is like the opposite. Should it? But I can agree with you that they should perhaps be. Anyway, do you have like other thoughts about it? Will we see it everywhere?
Everywhere? No, but we will see it. I think that this has a place in the game. I think that growth decks will run it. I don't know if it will be a massive impact scroll. I think it will be a choice scroll, right? Something that you tailor your deck to use, opposed to something that's a must run. I don't know. I might be way off on that, right? Because I'm really bad at guessing, particularly order early game stuff. Like in, you know, especially enchantment based stuff, it's hard for me to like get a grasp on what's going to be really, really good in that and what's going to kind of be meh. But I think it has a place and I think it's okay. I just don't think it's going to be a must run in every single growth deck. That's just how I feel.
I feel like this is at the moment really weak, and we're probably not gonna see it much. The reasoning is we just don't. All enchantment is done one by one. If we had some way to make sure that you kind of enchant several units fast, then yes, it can definitely be good. But because we don't have any kind of AoE enchantment, or we don't have like something like, for example, let's say we had a creature that had one countdown, and every time he reaches countdown, he can use his ability to give an 1 health enchantment buff to a friendly creature. He would have great synergy with this thing, because you would very quickly have a lot of enchanted units on your board, and you can use this thing to just give them more. But you don't really have that. You're gonna have on the board maybe 3 or 2 enchanted units, and this is like, it's not worth it.
Overlord. There is actually a creature that gives enchantments in the game.
I didn't say there doesn't exist, but there's none with the 1 countdown.
So here's my question. I feel like if we're gonna pull this over to Magic the Gathering, right? I feel like Magic the Gathering would introduce a cluster enchantment that did nothing just for cards like this, right? Like it will be like a joke card, right? It will be something like, I don't know, it would give everyone bunny ears or something. It's completely useless, does absolutely nothing, but it's designed to be like, well, they have an enchantment attached to them. Right, they have even if it does nothing, they have an enchantment attached to them, so cards like this can actually be of use. Right? You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we need stuff like that, like stuff that isn't necessarily like good, but it's designed to be played with these sort of scrolls, and it's designed to make those
maybe
sort of
not in
scrolls
cluster form, because we have stuff like Jolt Spark and Earthen Testament in the game.
It's called Feedback Jolt, by the way.
Oh, Feedback Jolt. So if you have if it's too easy to give AoE enchantments, it becomes too powerful in combination with these scrolls. But if there's, for example, a spell that gives 2 units or 3 units enchantments, I think that would be enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's too difficult because there's nothing like it, right? There's no AoE enchantments. Not like consistent AoE enchantments, right? There is stuff that does give AoE enchantments, but very, very limited stuff, very, very specific conditions.
Just to put it in another perspective here, if this Earth and Splendor it costs 4 growth, but it gives 3 free, that would be worth running. But now it's very cheap and gives very little, which means it's more about a quantity than a quality. That's why we kind of need a quantity, and it's hard to get that quantity.
Maybe there will be a scroll that comes out later down the line that is that useless cluster enchantment that's designed to go with this card. You know.
Here's the thing, though, guys. If you have 2 enchanted units and you play Earth and Splendor, you're getting essentially +2 attack and +2 health, and that is better than a Crown of Strength. Just to kind of put it in perspective.
There's
a lot of things better than Crown of Strength, though, right? No. I get what you're saying. I just, like I said, I think this is okay. I think you'll see it.
I think this is the counterpart to all the complaints about, oh my god, enchantments are god creature decks and they suck and they're so boring to play against. Because this is the first step on a long way to making enchantments viable in another condition than having a single god unit with ward. You know?
Yep.
This is the first step to saying, oh, you can actually enchant multiple units at the same time. Did you know that? And I think, while it might not be the super OP or whatever, or super stable card, it still does promote variety, and that's all we need, basically.
Yeah,
it's what Scrolls needs desperately, right? It's just more ways to play the game, you know, just more options when building decks. You know, this time I'm going to do a mass enchant deck, opposed to doing, you know, we have 3 right now. We have god decks, we have aggro decks, and we have the standard mid-range and late-game decks, you know? And it'd be cool to have something else, like we're going to have mass enchantment decks, you know, and they're going to be a totally different way to play the game. You know,
yeah, something to keep in mind here is that these are just 12 scrolls that they've revealed.
Yes.
It's possible they have a mass enchantment thing going on, or maybe if not in this set, then in the next set. So I think it's good to keep in mind that, sure, some scrolls they create might be weird or bad, but they need to fill out the card base. You need a scroll like this. If not, you know, now it'd have to be at some point, and I think it's fine to put it in now.
Yeah, I'm not opposing it. I'm just saying in its current state, it's weak, but it's one of these power creeps cards, so to speak, that it can easily become very potent in the future.
Yeah, it's a sleeper card. It's a sleeper card. It isn't good right now, but this is the second there's mass AoE enchantments, this card will instantly become one of the best cards in the game. You know, assuming that the enchantment's okay.
And with that, we're gonna move on to the next growth scroll.
I told you, Squiddy, we wouldn't do this in time frame.
Oh, it's fine. We're gonna have time. This is Eager to Battle. I think everyone knows what it does. It basically turns creatures with base attack, 2 or less, into haste creatures. And this is base attacks. It's what's written on the scroll itself. If you play a Fangstride Bear, it goes off the base attack and not of the current attack that it gets when its effect is activated, and it gets 4 attack. So you can play a hasted, relentless 4 attack creature.
That works. That does actually work.
Yes, that works, and it's intended because I think they clarify the scroll by saying adding the base attack clause.
Well, intended. It wasn't necessarily intended. By the way, this is a win of design competition. If anyone wants to know, it wasn't necessarily intended. They actually, for what I read, they didn't really think about it, but thought it could be cool, so they kept it right now as it is. That was more like the whole thing with it.
I mean, it's not a bug now that the bear is hasted, because in accordance to how it's written, that's how it should work.
Well, they put that base there after some feedback. The base wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah.
Clarifying scrolls. I'm not sure what else uses.
The same thing with how Proud Mercenary wasn't human, the mercenary before. They have put that in, and they have also put in the base.
That's good that they specified that, though, because that's something that perhaps they wouldn't have done, beforehand. But it's good that they actually specified that it is base attack opposed to just attack. Like, if they just left it as attack, then it would be confusing. It would be like, why is this a bug? Is this intentional? But,
do you guys know the name of the bear? Because I thought it was Fang Striped Bear, but...
Fang Bear. Striped Fang Bear.
Right. That's good to know.
I'm just making jokes in chat about this, but...
I was just a bit confused there, okay. But, I mean, as for this scroll, I've been doing a ton of playing with it. The most fun I have with this is in a decay deck. And that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, that is such squiddy nonsense. Well, it's not nonsense. It's actually good. Okay, I'm gonna take fairly short what I think about this. This card is extremely strong, and I'm not sure how, but it will, at least according to me, it will in some sense need to be nerfed, because you may argue, I can see people argue all kinds of ways to defend why it's actually not that great and so on. Like, I'm just gonna put this simply to you. How good by stat is Ragged Wolf? But everyone runs Ragged Wolf. Why? Because he has haste, and that is really great. No, not every deck is running to get that one more attack on Great Wolf. That's not necessarily why Ragged Wolf is run. They run him because he has that haste, and it's awesome to have haste. This makes so much into a haste unit. And having so much options as a haste unit make this card extremely powerful. It's not like uber overpowered, but it is on the overpowered side. And in some way, shape or form, it needs to be nerfed. That's what I feel. But I like the concept. I'm just gonna say, I'm not like against having the card in the game. It can be in the game. I like it. It fits growth. But the way it is now, it's too strong, if you ask me.
Have you guys mentioned the fact that it works for both players?
It do work for both players, but you have to keep this in mind. Like, except for perhaps Energy, who has a lot of low attack creatures. When it comes to Decay and Order, they don't really have a lot of low attack creatures. Like, it's gonna way much more benefit the growth player. Almost all creature is at free attack. It's like free attack is pretty much the big majority of creatures. It's mostly, I haven't really done massive research, but I would say on top of my head, it's mostly Energy that has a lot of 2 counters. So okay, I would say this is risky probably against an Energy player.
I've taken a look at it. It's essentially 21 creatures in growth with 2 attack or less, 20 creatures in decay.
Decay, yeah.
And 16, I think, in energy, and I think just 14 or something in order. So it benefits growth most, decay most, though you do have to bear in mind that a lot of those creatures are creatures that aren't currently played as much, like the Major Rat or the Infected Gravelock. But there are stuff that people actually do play currently in those decks, like a Slayer Vestige becomes hasted with this. The Tribesman, that 3 count on Mega Unit, that becomes hasted. That's pretty good to have hasted. Rippers become hasted.
But you also have to keep things like this in mind. Like, yes, there is things which can make you bite the bust. And one of the most common examples is like Slayer Vestige. Awesome to have a hasted Slayer Vestige. But many scenarios you're gonna have like a hasted Ilmair Tribesman or a hasted Loyal Darkling. What are you gonna do with that, really? Like, you're not gonna give it a Crimson Bull or anything. It's just gonna
Loyal Darkling can be insta-sacrificed.
You win that, man. You win that game.
I see a win that way.
I'm just saying, yes, it's not a bad thing for you, but it's gonna benefit the growth way more than it's gonna benefit you. So I'm still saying eager to battle is. I'm just feeling it's too strong, but I like it being in the game.
So I want to take a different stance on this, a different look at this scroll. I think that now, I can't speak for you, the Overlord, but I think that people that are nervous about this card and saying that it might be OP or that it is OP or whatever the case may be, I feel like they have slight rose-tinted goggles on, and they're looking back at the fact that aggro growth was so strong not a few weeks ago, and it only just got nerfed, and it's still really, really good. And I feel like people are looking at that and getting really concerned about, oh man, it was the best deck, and this card's going to be such a big buff for it, and it's going to be so powerful and stuff. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think this is going to be okay. I think it's going to be good, but I think it's in line with other aggro growth shenanigans that they can do. It affects both sides. It could, bite you really, really hard in certain situations, and I don't think it's that. I think it's really, really good. I just don't think it's that crazy. I'm not sure if it needs a nerf. And if you were to nerf it, you got to be really careful, because if you nerf it too much, this is going to be like rubbish. This is going to be like horrible if you nerf it too much.
Like the Asylon Spires, essentially, if you nerf it too hard.
Yeah.
Well, Asylon Spires was nerfed in the wrong way, and of course I don't want Eager to Battle to be nerfed in the wrong way.
But how could you nerf it though, right? Like I don't see.
I will just say in that case I need to sit down and think a lot about it.
Yeah.
But it will be along the lines of increasing the cost a bit or something. I do not want to be well, let's make it the base attack 1. No, that's horrible. Don't do that. That's not what I'm suggesting.
I just the wiggle room for this card is not that big. There's no normally when I look at a scroll that I think is very, very strong and could maybe have a nerf given to, I can go oh, okay, just increase its cost or reduce the lingering effect or reduce the damage it gives or the health it gives, whatever it may be, right? But with this, I don't know what you could change on here. Maybe it will have to be probably the lingering, but I feel like that's a tiny it's a very you go down to 2 and then it might as well not be a lingering spell, right? Because you only
give me a dedicated day and I can give you 10 suggestions.
Sure. No, but let me go on my point here. My point was that I feel like this is kind of not the best design scroll in the world because it has so little wiggle room to be nerfed, right? There are ways to buff it, but I don't think it needs buffing, right? I don't know. I feel like this is a very, very delicate scroll and could be really, really annoying to deal with. But at the same time, I don't know how you could nerf it in any way. And I don't think that
it'd be fine to put this on live as it is, and just wait and see a couple of weeks from now on. And let's move on then to the final growth scroll and the creature, and that is Steelwood Vindicator. It's a 3-cost creature with a new subtype. Human Warden. Yep, that's a new subtype. They haven't added it to any other creature in the game. It's a 4 attack, 2 countdown, 2 health, relentless dude. So yeah,
it is a dude indeed.
It's good. It's really good.
I think it's really, really good.
I think this isn't just. I don't see the negative here to this. 2 health as a negative. I mean, yeah, that does suck that it's got 2 health, but you get this thing out. If it attacks once, you're in growth. You're going to be able to get it up to, +2 attack probably. This thing's going to hit for 6, and it's, you're going to be able to do that fairly easily. There's so many things that buff the attack. Even getting into 5, let's say 5, right? You buff it once to get to 5. It's going to cleave through units. It's just going to get 2 or 3 units before it dies. And 2 countdown, it's going to attack. There are so many creatures that always get an attack in at 2 and have 2 HP or have 3 HP. The difference between 2 and 3 is not that big, right?
And especially, usually you'd say, okay, 1 attack, 1 point of attack and 1 point of health is roughly equivalent, but with the unit having Relentless, the point of attack is actually much more worth than the point of health.
Yep.
So because you make sure it always gets used. So this is basically, I think it's a flat out better skirmisher because you can make much more use of the attack. Especially with growth, yeah, as you said,
Well,
growth has so many ways to buff it. Let it say.
I don't know if I would say it's a better skirmisher. I think it's on par with skirmishers. Because I, like I said, I really don't think the difference between 2 health and 3 health is that big. Like I really don't think it's that big.
I just have to get into comment. Didn't want to interrupt you two all the time, but I mean, I just have to comment here. It is a big thing. Like 2 to 3 health, it actually matters, and I would not say attack and health is really equal to each other. But all right, let's move on to your point, and I go with mine later on.
I mean, we might as well talk about that, right? Like, I personally don't see a difference. I feel like stuff that's at 3 health is going to die if it gets hit. Most stuff is going to die if it gets hit at 3 health. Sometimes it's going to survive with 1 HP, and when it does, that's great. But, I mean, this isn't that kind of unit, right? Like, well, you're going to stick this in the back, you're going to try and protect this, unless they burn removal on it, right? Like, this thing's going to hit.
Well, you're thinking, I feel like you're thinking a lot when it comes to combat from units. It's when it comes to spells and such that these health difference really matters.
Oh, but I would be happy. I mean, the only thing that I could see being annoying for this thing is Quake, right? Like that's gonna.
There's more in the game than Quake.
Yeah, but if they want to use be my guest. Use a spark on this thing. Like, I don't care if you use a spark on that. That's 1 spark you've just wasted, in my opinion.
I would say there was some great value on that spark. I would not really say it was a waste. But,
I think, I think Soul Steel is the only one. I think that's the only one I wouldn't want to hit this thing. I wouldn't mind that much if it got hit by a spark. I'd be like, oh great, so now you can't spark stuff into burn range. Nice.
I don't think that's not really how you usually want to use spark.
But that's what I mean. Like, it's a waste of a spark, and you can't waste more than 1 spark. I feel, right? Like, you lose that opportunity to waste that spark, or to use it in an unorthodox way and not get a kill.
I must honestly say this.
I won't go too much into a spark value debate, but I would say spark on a 3-costed creature with 4 attack relentless, I will not call that a waste. But if you feel it's a waste, but then alright. What I feel about Steelwood Vindicator, I think he's just overall he's very balanced. I am scared to give growth relentless because growth has like 2 main weaknesses. Is that they don't really have direct removals in the sense they are very straightforward in their attacking patterns, and it also comes down to how they are also very straightforward in their attacking patterns, in that you can pretty much because they lack relentless and such, you pretty much know that okay, they can max kill 2 guys here and so on, unless they have a Great Wolf. Giving them more relentless and things like that kind of scares me. What I will say about this balance, I think he's 50% meh and 50% awesome. Why I say that is because against growth in Mirror, we'll say, and against Order, he's probably really good, because put him somewhere relatively safe, like in the back line or something. Order and growth is gonna have a big problem trying to deal with him. However, having him against decay and energy, they're probably not gonna have a big issue dealing with him really. They can reach behind with their soul steams or brain lies. Brainless will fairly quickly take him down, or they can do their spark and so on to pretty much take him out. So that's what I feel. He's probably gonna be used, but he's better.
So I just want to talk because chat erupted when I said that. I will point out though that Ghostbomb said that Sparking Brave is such a waste. Obviously, he's taking a dig, right? But you've just used a Spark up on this thing that now you can't use on a Brave, right? Like, what I'm saying is, if you use a Spark on this, you're not going to have it for a Brave. You're not going to have it for these other creatures, right?
I
And you
think
can
this is
only
better than
normally
a Brave,
you can
though.
only normally waste a single spark, right? Like it's a
I
valuable
love the way you're
resource.
using the
Dude.
term. You can only waste the spark once.
I mean, well, the thing,
I'm-
no, what I mean by
I-
yeah, waste is a strong term. It is the wrong term to use, right? I will agree. That's not the right term to use. You can only use a spark in that way, like once, maybe twice max, and you won't have it for like a brave and stuff. So if you use it on this, I feel like your opponent's going to go, oh, you just used it on that. That's fine. I'm just going to drop brave now.
But to be completely honest with you, I wouldn't necessarily agree that a Brave is so much stronger than this and so much more of an important spark target. Because this has Relentless built in, and if a Brave's not buffed, it has the same attack per turn.
But then you argue, like, what's better, one countdown or Relentless and stuff like that, and...
Well, regarding your argument with, like, if you spark this, you can't spark the Brave, well... If you spark the Brave, like, let's look at the live server. Like, if you spark a Brave, then you can't do spark on, and I need to figure out on something else. But there's other stuff you want to spark, like, that's such a. Nah, I don't really buy that logic. Sorry, it's if you have something valuable to spark, it was worth it to spark that thing. You don't
Sure,
have
no,
to.
no, no, no,
You
no, I
don't have.
totally...
You
I
don't
totally
have
agree
to.
with that.
Stop. I'm gonna have to cut you off there.
Okay,
'cause
okay.
I feel like
It's
this
just a
could
matter
go
of
too long.
opinion. Obviously, I'm wrong. Everyone else is right. I don't play NG.
You're not wrong, but we all
Before we
have the
move on,
opposite opinion.
before we move on to the decay scrolls, I would note that the Scattergunner is pretty shit now. Because that's a 3-cost 4/2/2 with nothing
It's-
special but ranged attack.
It's energy though.
To
It's
be
a faction
fair,
difference.
I was thinking to bring this up when it came to canister, but I felt like I wanted to save time. But okay, because you brought it up now. To be fair, Scattergunner in a weird roundabout way is getting buffed because the range trait is sort of getting buffed. We are getting more and more good units that is melee. So we're heading more and more to a melee meta, and as a more melee meta we face, we're gonna face more of these like melee counters guy, like spearmen and so on. And the more melee counters we face, the better it is to have a range trait. I'm not saying Scattergun is gonna rise to popularity. I mean, I'm saying in a roundabout way, with all this melee focus we are getting in the game, with all the melee scrolls and so on, the range trait is getting more and more attractive to have.
Interesting too that how meta changes can indirectly buff certain scrolls. But we'll move on now to the decay stuff. And the first one we have is Shambler Sickness.
Half an hour, go.
A 1-cost enchantment with a displacement subtype. And the enchanted unit's move is decreased by 1. And then before attacking, enchanted unit is moved to a random adjacent tile. So just something you have to note beforehand. It being moved means that the unit itself isn't moving. That can be relevant in some cases. I'm not sure which.
Staring Shackles?
No, because it says when the... I don't know. I know there is a
Okay.
difference between being moved and moving in the game. Another interesting thing to point out is if you put this on a Mire Shambler, it will only do this random move once, because you've decreased its natural move, and it's through its natural move that it activates its own ability.
Oh my god, Andrew.
But yeah, what do you guys think about this?
It's the winner of the design competition, and what a winner we have! Everyone rejoice. I don't think anyone knows how to play this card.
Yeah, the problem with it, if
I
sorry.
was talking.
What?
Yes, I always do. I always talk. I talk too much. I'm sorry, people. I talk too much. Anyway, regarding this.
Xylus, continue.
For-
The Overlord, you can say something last. Xylus, go ahead.
Ooh, shots fired.
Swag!
I feel red.
I'm sorry. The thing I think about this is that because it has both the move -1 and the random movement, it is neither too beneficial as an offensive enchantment on an enemy unit, and neither too good as a enchantment on your own units. Like, what you can do with it is move structures. That's a good thing, but that's not gonna be too relevant, I think, especially in Decay. And if you want to use this like a binding route, then the opponent can play around it and use the random movement to position his units very, very well still. And if you use it on one of your units, it is very, very situational. You can maybe use it after the normal movement and the unit's about to attack, and then you enchant it or something. But I still think it is entirely too situational to include in any deck, basically.
Yeah, I actually tested this scroll. And yes, the surprise harvester double move, it's super cool. But other than that, it's completely useless. In my opinion.
You can put it on a structure and have the structure move around.
As you said, you don't have that in Decay. Like, I don't want my Watcher to move
so
around.
Like to put it like this, if this card, and I am totally theorizing because I'm not sure how one is going to use this card, but if one would use this card seriously in any way, I think it would be used as some kind of, because of Decay's lack of options to deal with it. It would be some weird ass roundabout of Potter, in the sense that, okay, if you're Decay and you're facing something really annoying in front of you, like a Waking Stone or something that is potion of resistant or whatever, use this and you can get through that row next turn, so to speak. That is like what I would say. Although I'm not sure if it works on. I don't think it works on a Waking Stone, because Waking Stone doesn't attack.
Yeah, it doesn't work on it.
Yeah, so but I'm saying, like, it's sort of that mindset, because I was thinking, like, maybe you could use this in a feedback Yolt deck as it is an enchantment, but I'm like, if it was cantrip, yes, but it's not cantrip. It's not really worth just to get an enchantment out for feedback Yolt for it, so I don't know. Someone needs to be really smart to make this work.
Is this up there with one of the worst Decay scrolls?
I would say it's up there for one of the worst scrolls in the entire game.
I mean, there's
Really?
Voidgate.
Wow.
I haven't seen Voidgate ever played in a series.
Voidgate's like the only time I've ever. So there was this one time I saw Voidgate used, and that was in when we did a draft night, and it literally cost someone that was about to win the next turn the game. It literally cost them the game. It is a horrible scroll. Is this as bad as that? I don't think so. I think this is nowhere near as bad as that.
I would say this is worse than Voidgate. Like, Voidgate...
Really?
Yes, because, look, people use Voidgate wrong. It's just that Voidgate, it has zero synergy with anything. That's the problem with Voidgate. Voidgate is actually really good because you're probably at some point gonna lose an idol. And if you have lost an idol, put a Voidgate in that row, and pretty much you are almost untouchable in that row. But why do you want to be untouchable in that row? What do you want to put in that row to be so untouchable? And that's the problem. There's no synergy. There's not really anything you want to put there to be that untouchable. And
that probably shouldn't turn this into a Voidgate discussion, to be honest.
Could you put this on? Could you put this? Would this be, because it's units, right? So you can put it on structures, yeah. So can you put it on opponents? Can you put it on forges? Can you put it on your opponent's forges so that when they do something, they move into a really awkward position?
You can put it on your structures that have an attack.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Oh,
it would
they have
work
to have an attack.
on...
It's not countdown, is it?
It would work on Ether Pump. It would work on Ether Pump.
Ether Pump, Charge Coil.
I don't think it would work on Automata Forge, because that doesn't attack.
Yeah,
or does it? Like, the way it spawns...
Well, that's, yeah, see, that's the thing. Does summoning count as its attack?
I guess we'll try it out.
I mean, that's a testing.
The fun thing is... Wait a second. Wait
It'll be good then.
No, guys. If you have a Wetland Ranger, okay, and he pillages, he will give his buff to structures as well. So you can then enchant them with my...
Wow, that's next level right there. That's next level setup right there.
10 out of 10 new meta. I'm just saying, guys.
I'm just
That's the
saying
thing
we
that
should
Frank
probably
really
move
could do or
on. We should probably move on.
There's got to be a use for it, right?
Whoever does come up with the use for it, and if it turns out
Which-
to be actually good and
Which would be
worthwhile,
amazing.
I'll award them a gold star.
Would
we'll
it
move
be
on.
the best scroll ever? Right, yeah, continue.
So the next one is a lingering spell, 4 decay. Ashen Vapors, 2 decay. Linger, 4. Poison damage is increased by 1. So it's the old Miasma Well effect.
Yay, Miasma Well is alive. I'm so hyped. It's not that significant, but I just love it because it's the old Miasma
I was
Well.
gonna say, did you like the old Miasma Well? Well, here you go, it's back. Like that.
Yeah.
There's not too much to talk about.
It's
honestly.
nostalgia. It's the same reason you like
there's
Counter-Strike,
things
even
to
though it's
talk
shit.
Well,
about.
actually, no, that isn't true, is it? Because Poison's changed since then. So and it's way different now, right? So you know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
isn't the same because of the fact that Poison has changed so many times.
You can also play it in the infamous Super Stall Lingering DO Mega deck that I invented.
I won a Nobel Peace Prize for it, you know.
Yeah, something to
Anyway,
note
I
actually.
would say there is things to talk about. On a non-serious note, but I cannot help but think about it every time I see this. Is this some kind of rabbit lizard? What is this thing?
It's a
Atmas said it was a nog. Atmas said it was a hairless nog.
I pegged it as a nog when I saw it.
Nog? Well, okay. Okay, sure, whatever. I haven't actually seen the backside of a nog in the sense that I know if they have a tail. Alright, on a serious note about this, when it comes to, oh, Miasma Well is back. Okay, what is the difference about this and Miasma Well if we're gonna think about that?
It's a lingering spell.
It might not last as long. It might last longer. Like it's.
Okay, that is one of the things. Miasma Well, in theory, could last forever. However, it was more easily to be removed because it was on the field. This is a linger, so it's more difficult to remove, but it will only last for 4 turns unless you do another one or like Mystic Storm. And then it comes to the fact that the Miasma Well before you could stack it. The more Miasma Well, the more damage. You cannot stack with lingering, so you cannot make the poison do 2 more poison damage and so on with this, which I think is a good approach. And I'm a bit irritated honestly to go on it's not really a rant because it's gonna be more of a comment. But I'm a bit irritated. I read like one of the reasons they took away the old Miasma Well thing was because of it stacking up the poison as it did, which made it an issue when it comes to balance. And I just feel, well, couldn't they like have said that a bit earlier? Because that would probably have silenced a lot of people who wanted the old Miasma Well back. Just giving that reason, because many, including me, had no idea really why the old Miasma Well was removed the way it was. So anyway, about this. Of course it's good, of course it's viable, and we're probably gonna see it in...
Will this make poison decks good again? Will this make poison decks an archetype? Well, they're okay right now.
Poison deck, this is definitely a key piece for poison deck. Yes, actually, it is a key piece. It's not the thing that will make poison decks really good again, but it is a key piece for it.
Yeah, I think actually that poison decks are already viable.
Yeah.
People have forgotten that we had the patch just a couple of days ago, and we got that new clustered hex. So you can do something with poison and that extra curse, and it would probably be really good. People haven't played enough, really.
I've spectated a few games where I saw it in use. I think the poison decks are okay. I don't think they're amazing, right? Like there are plenty of other decks that will be here, but I mean, it's not bad. And this is, a great step in making poison decks really, really good. So 1 or 2 more cards like this.
You have counters. You have counters with this, And by making more powerful lingering spells, you're encouraging people to play anti-linger spells. And then you get a more interesting meta because you can also allow for more powerful lingering spells. The developers can create even more powerful lingering spells because they know it's alright, people have Sown Enigmas in their decks. They have Rattle Him. They can counter this stuff. All I have to say about it. Any other thoughts?
It's the old Myers War. I mean, there's not too much to say. It was okay back then. It was okay now. I mean, you can't stack it as easily. Like the overall brought
can't stack it at
it's
all.
easily stacked, and if you do manage,
it's impossible to stack.
Yeah,
I will not say it's not that easy. It's impossible, but
you can make it last a lot
both
longer. I mean,
both players play it. It can be stacked.
Does it only affect your opponent? So you can, if your opponent plays
it's all
this,
poison damage.
Yeah, like it kills your Blight Bearers faster, for example. Because they deal poison damage to themselves.
So they really went all the way. Okay, cool. That's cool.
We'll move on to the final scroll of these 12 scrolls, and it's another poison synergy unit. Infested Husk, 2 decay, undead, 2/3/3, so the same stat line as the Slayer Vestige. But instead of Slayer, this has Infested Husk has +1 attack for each poisoned creature. I think this is really cool, but it's weird because you want to make sure that you can poison stuff, but then have those things survive long enough for the Infested Husk to attack. So you need to do a lot of synchronization and a lot of clever poisoning to ensure that this attacks when you poison something. But yeah, I think this is cool. What do you think about this? What about start off with Xylus?
I think it has a massive problem in both its high base countdown and its faction identity, because we all know DK is the faction with the least countdown reduction. And this is really where its massive problem is. Like, it can potentially get huge if you play a poison deck and you run mass poisoning stuff and you just want to poison everything. It can potentially get huge to kill off structures or warded units or whatever, stuff that you can't poison. However, it is damn hard, damn near impossible to actually get the Husk to attack whenever you want. I could see it being played in Decay Order, stalling poison stuff with Tempo Theft, maybe. But either way, I don't think it's ever going to have the same impact of an attack as a unit like Harvester, which you can Tempo Theft instead, or Speed, or whatever, who has a 8 attack Relentless attack, which is pretty much always going to be more useful than this Husk, no matter how many units are poisoned. So I think it's very unlikely to be included in high-level decks, even though I like it.
How did you make the comparison to Harvester? Like, is it because they are both undead?
It is because they're both units designed for a single high-damage attack.
Okay, I follow your brain pattern there. Although it's
I just wanted
a
to
really
make
long brain pattern.
I wanted to just bring up something someone said in the chat. The Outcast Rebel in Growth is a 2-cost 4/3/3. So it has 2 more attack than the Infested Husk. And the question is then if you can, with Infested Husk, get up to 4 attack consistently every time it attacks, and I'm not sure you can.
You can, but it's undead. Being undead is a big buff to it. Because it is affected by it triggers Irva, it is affected by Restless Bones.
The problem is though, I mean the main problem with the scroll is like the buff is only there as long as the creatures are on the board with poison. They're going to die eventually and it's going to lose the buff. Like, you have to have such foresight to poison the unit and then have it sync up to when this attacks and then have it attack something worthwhile. Like, it's too finicky. Way too finicky. The only reason you would ever see this run, in my opinion, is because it has that undead trait, right? Which is so helpful. There's so many like benefits to having that trait, and because of that, it might see play. I just think it's way too like you have to run poison stuff with this, and then you're like competing for space with other stuff. Like it just feels way too crowded, right? Like you need to run this in both a poison and an undead deck to get the most out of it, and at that point, is it really worth it?
I would actually really love to have decent undead units that don't have a ridiculous countdown. Can you imagine that? How good that would
Yeah,
be?
we can only dream. We can. Only dream.
I think that's sort of there is a few exceptions like my Shambler, which is for the most part the only exception, but
Revenant as well, but Revenant.
that is why I didn't say the one and only. Anyway, I like the design of Infested Husk, but indeed, as you've been all touching on, is that he's kind of too weak at the moment. I feel what they should do stronger and probably at least more viable is that instead of having one attack for each poisoned creature, have him that he gets one permanently attack for each time a creature gets poisoned. That is what I will change with him.
Would that not be too strong though if it was permanent?
Nah,
Maybe give him 2 health.
not really. Like also you have to think it a bit like this. Giving it some time, even if the guy is like a 12-3-3, is that really too strong? I would not really say so. Considering how much time you need to ramp up.
What if it was
to
every
that.
time a unit died from poison? Like, the poison damage had to be the thing that killed it.
Be hard to pull
That-
off.
Yeah, that I would say.
I don't know. I
every-
just feel like
every
you got to
time-
be careful whenever you give undead like high attack and stuff like that, because they can. Restless Bones is always there, and it's always just such a scary thing. But then again,
Well-
this doesn't go relentless, so yeah,
well,
it's
yes,
probably okay actually.
I
It'll probably
mean,
be
like,
okay.
I mean, like, yes, Restless Bones is there, but I mean, if you cannot deal with undead because you have an issue with the Restless Bones, you're gonna have a hard time facing a growth player. I'm just saying. So you better.
Yeah, no, I think you're okay.
So, so my main point is that I think he should permanently gain one attack in one way or another. That is his issue. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I like the design. I like him.
I mean, right now you can compare it to Blade Husk, kinda. Don't you?
Okay, again, how?
Well, same thing. It is undead. It has 3 countdown. It is designed for high attacks. But Blade Husk, the downside to Blade Husk is only he has 1 health less, and we've talked about the difference between 2 and 3 health. But it has 3 attack more permanently, and it has Relentless built. Well, Dominion Relentless. So I don't know. It's maybe not a very apt comparison, but I still think that Blade Husk is better.
I think Blade Husk is more meant to be like, here's the thing. I think Blade Husk is more meant to be a sort of glass cannon, or someone who becomes a bit of a glass cannon of the Dominion, while Infested Husk is more about being this annoying thing that is not really a threat, but if you leave him around, he will become a threat. He's like that. I know this creature, I just can't figure out. I think I'm thinking of a Comaton. Like, you don't really want to immediately deal with a Comaton, but at some point you kind of need to deal with the Comaton because it's getting too much damage and it's getting annoying. That is sort of what this guy is sort of meant to be, I think.
Something to note is that it has 2 attack, and I tried this in the Eager to Battle deck with decay creatures, and
Oh my god.
in that it
No.
works pretty well because the other 2 attack and less creatures are poisonous. So something like the what's that mask creature called? Festering Freak. You put that down, it becomes hasted. It attacks into something. You place the Infested Husk on a row below it or a tile behind it. It's now a 3 attack hasted unit, essentially a veteran. But outside of that, I had trouble making him worthwhile because, like you guys have mentioned, you need to really have foresight to sort of synchronize these poisons to ensure that their unit die before the attack, but not before this thing managed to get an attack off. And that is pretty hard.
Yep.
That's the end of it, but before we go, we're going to take a look at one last scroll that was revealed today. And that scroll is the
Silas.
Scout.
Oh.
No.
Mister of the Kraken. No.
So this guy was revealed today.
Pretty sure it's a girl.
I was gonna say it's a girl, right?
Is it?
Is it chick?
Zoom in here.
That's-
Oh yeah,
There's-
we're gonna have this discussion again.
There's like
It's-
eyeliner there.
Wait,
It's an
wait.
Arya type
Just-
girl.
Let me take a look. Let me take a look.
We have this discussion about some kind of scroll.
This is a boy. I'm 100% sure
okay,
it's a
Are
boy.
you sure? Hang
Okay,
on.
moment. Let
Don't
me
we have
check.
the rule, if it's not drawn by Poi, it's not a girl?
Oh yeah. Who has? It is not Poi who's drawn. It's Carnalizer.
Yeah. So it literally can't be a girl.
It
if it's
cannot
not
be a
drawn
girl.
by-
Okay, I'm looking at this right now. It can be both. I can see it being both. But
Maybe
okay,
the
I'm
Order
gonna
is
say,
really advanced empire and they allow transsexual people in their army.
They're very
How's that for a
forward. Yeah, they're very
change?
forward thinking in
Yeah,
the old empire.
there's argument to give on both sides, but I will have to admit that I'm probably leaning more towards a boy for reasons that it's not important. Let's get on with the scroll then.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, this
no,
is really
isn't
important,
Dark
actually.
Lord. This is important.
It
I mean,
should have
I'm looking here at
subtype
the
female
chest
or
area.
something.
Okay, it's not gonna be as funny as you think. It's more about this. We have wings being ladies and soldiers being men. It's those kind of factors I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, well, all the wing stuff are soldiers.
But I'm talking more about solo soldiers, not wings and soldier. Again, we're going.
There's like eyeliner there. I see eyeliner. I don't know.
No, it's not.
Medieval
I'm looking
eyeliner?
at the chest area here.
What
It
the
looks
hell
more like.
eyeliner. Like, who the hell has eyeliners on the battlefield? Like, I'm gonna go on a scout.
Dude, it's
Call of Duty.
camouflage.
I need my
It's
eye.
it's camouflage. You never see it, but the lines, so the sun doesn't reflect.
If it is camouflage, then it's not
That's why they
only
do it, by the way.
ladies doing it. Men is also doing it if it is for camouflage.
No, because men aren't smart enough to use camouflage, okay?
Okay, now that is just dumb reasoning.
Okay, guys, we're gonna have to stop there. I'm gonna request
sorry.
Atmas to contact Carnalize first thing Monday and find out the gender of the scout. But let's
I
move
am
on
actually-
to the
I am
stats.
This can't
actually-
wait till Monday. You call them up now.
I am actually going to guess this is going to be a boy, but I can see it being both girl and boy.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Anyway, shall we
Anyway.
move on to the actual scroll?
Yes, it's a 2-order human soldier with the stat line 222. So that alone is bad. But it has an ability. When Scout comes into play, sift 3 scrolls from your library, choose one of them